Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another exciting episode of Universally You. Today, we will be discussing the events that led to the galactic intervention of multiple beings from various different star systems in conjunction with the ascended masters of the Nephilim and higher consciousness to bring reality on this planet into harmony. Yes, rather broad, I know, but very fascinating. This video might be a bit longer than the usual ones. I'd ask that you enjoy, that you bear with me, and that you enjoy. Yes, I said that twice. I'm going to say it 3 times. Enjoy. All right. In the previous video, we were talking about the Lemurians and how they set up the structure of the Tree of Life on the island of Atlantis. And I spoke about what happened to Mars. I spoke about what happened to Mars, yes. About how they obliterated their atmosphere and built a synthetic Merkaba and used it to occupy the vacant vortex on Atlantis without permission. All right, that's just a brief overview of what I've been talking about. Now let's get stuck into it. All right. A few thousand Martians used the space-time structure to translate themselves into their future, our past, to save their species. Once they arrived, they immediately tried to take over Atlantis, but Lemurians subdued them eventually, and their numbers were too small to do this. Remember, the Martians had severed their love connection with reality. There's a part in my notes that I've crossed out. I'll show you. Which I really didn't want to talk about, but I feel it might be necessary simply to get across the gravity of the situation. All right, now, having severed their love connection with reality, the Martians, in terms of consciousness, represented about a 70-year-old man. And at the time, the Lemurian consciousness was equivalent to a 14-year-old girl. Now, you have to ask for permission, as I've been emphasizing, and what they did was equivalent to consciousness rape. It's very similar to what happened between colonists and Native Americans. Yeah. Anyway. The Martians agreed, after the initial conflict was over, that they would try and understand this emotional feeling, this thing of love. And eventually things started to settle down until they tried to implement some of their left brain technology. Now, there's an interesting thing about left and right brain technology, and that's that you can basically accomplish anything with either once they've reached their full potential. And when we start talking about the light body and the implications of the Merkaba and unity consciousness and all that, you realize that you don't need either. Anyway, they started to implement these left brain inventions into the culture, uh, into the social structure of Atlantis. And eventually they gained control, bit by bit, over the finances and over the economic state. Anyway, this continued for about 26,000 years, and then the next phase began. There was a minor pole shift which caused a portion, tiny piece of Atlantis to sink. And this made them very nervous because they thought the entire island was going to sink, like what happened with Lemuria. But it didn't. What did happen was that what did happen was that about 13,000 to 16,000 years ago, a comet approached the Earth. A catalyst comet. Anyway, they had very sophisticated technology and they were able to see this comet approaching the Earth. And they gathered together in their councils and what have you and had a debate on what to do about this comet. Anyway, the Martians in true form said, let's blow it out of the sky, it's going to kill us. But the Lemurians, the Nakar, they said that the comet's approach was in order, that what was supposed to happen was supposed to happen. Basically, they said everything as it should be, the universe is harmonious. If the comet is supposed to hit Earth, then it's supposed to hit Earth. And majority ruled. The Martians reluctantly agreed to letting it strike the Earth. Now, anyway, the comet entered the Earth's upper atmosphere and dissipated into many pieces, and a piece of that comet landed exactly where the Martians lived and killed a sizable amount of their population. The Martians were hurt the most by conceding to allow the comet to hit. Anyway, this resulted in a kind of divorce, if you will. The Martians said, basically, we don't want anything to do with you. And they said, you do whatever you want to do, and we'll do whatever we want to do. It was quite similar to a divorce. And you know what happens with a divorce? The children get the raw deal. Anyway, now this is a very key point in what I've been telling you. Throughout what I've been telling you, there are fulcrums, there are plot twists, there are intersections and story arcs that form the bones of the story. Here I go. Now, the Martians decided to try and take over the Earth. So what they did was attempt to build a synthetic Merkaba complex of buildings here on Earth, just like they did a few thousand years earlier. Anyway, I believe that they thought that they knew what they were doing, but 50,000 years had passed and they didn't quite remember how to do this. Anyway, they decided to go along with this experiment, and this links to a lot of subsequent experiments, including the Philadelphia experiment and the Montauk experiment. Anyway, the moment they thought they had everything set up, they, flipped the switch and immediately lost control. And what happened was that their synthetic Merkaba ripped a hole in the lower levels of the Earth's dimensional planes, and they almost killed the planet. This resulted in a huge number of lower dimensional spirits being forced into the higher dimensional planes of Earth, and these spirits were forced into a world that they didn't understand, and they had to live, and they needed bodies, so they just jumped right into people. Almost every person in Atlantis was possessed by these beings, and it was pandemonium. Probably the biggest catastrophe that this planet has ever seen. What I'm telling you does also form the basis of Scientology, but as it's been recently resolved, I feel that order is somewhat irrelevant. Just my personal opinion there. Anyway, now what's important to understand about this, or not necessarily important, I find it really interesting, is that this botched experiment occurred on an island, well, off the coast of the island of Atlantis, which is where the Bermuda Triangle is today. There was an actual building on the ocean floor, and it's been causing space-time distortions for a few years, luckily. Quite fortunately, this has been resolved since the year 2012. Anyway, what the Martians did was very, very illegal. They attempted to alter the consciousness of the entire planet in an attempt to gain control of it, which in terms of the Galactic Command and life in general is just unthinkable. Anyway, this resulted in a tremendous consciousness drop, and only a few beings at the time had their Merkabas activated, which means that they weren't affected, and these were the Ascended Masters at the time. You know, Nakal, the Nakal, how do I say this? The immortals of time, who in terms of Earth were still pretty young and they needed a lot of assistance. Anyway, I suggest that you read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, because as it is the case, Thoth is one of those Ascended Masters, one of the original Nakal that had to assist Earth in regaining consciousness awareness after this flipping catastrophe. All right, I'm going to be talking about what the Ascended Masters did and all of the events that took place to bring about the state of harmonic consciousness that this planet is experiencing now. But if you're interested, there is a detailed account of all of this in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, among other things. All right. A lot to get across. A lot to get across, and I hope that it kind of sunk in. Yeah. Anyway, love and light, people. Thank you for watching, as always, and I hope that what I'm telling you has provided you with insight. Love yourselves.